Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining the Central Jersey Club tonight. My name is Kenesha Jones. I am the first vice president, and I'm glad you can join us. Before we begin, I want to thank our president, who is in attendance tonight, Ms. Elise Franklin Owens, and also acknowledge that our past national president is in attendance, Ms. Piola Smith-Smith. Hello to both of you ladies, and thanks for joining us tonight. This month, January, is National Slavery and Human Trafficking Awareness and Prevention Month. And so the Central Jersey Club wanted to learn more about this critical issue that's affecting the youth of our community. And so we were fortunate enough to partner with the Covenant House of New Jersey, their amazing organization. And we asked that they would come tonight to share some information about the work that they do in the community and also teach us a little bit about this issue and what we can do on a local level to help those impacted. We've had the honor, Madam President and I, to meet Killian Warman and speak to her a couple of times over the past couple of weeks. We participated in a sleep out in October, a few of our club members, and we also donated a dinner to the house in Asbury Park in December. So we're delighted that she's joining us this evening with other representatives from the Covenant House, and I'm sure she'll introduce them and their role there. So without any further delay, Killian, it's all you.
Thank you so much, Kenesha. Well, I have two other very special coworkers on, Lori Rusich, who's our resource service provider for North Jersey, and Jenny Allen, who is the resource specialist for South Jersey. I see them popped up with their names on, and these two wonderful ladies work specifically with our human trafficking program, which really has kind of grown wings, I think, in the last few months since we were awarded a grant from the Attorney General's office, which I'm sure Jenny and Lori will talk more about. My name is Killian Warman, as Kenesha said, and I am a major gift officer with Covenant House. I have been with Covenant House almost a year now, so I'm still a little bit of a newbie. I'll wear that until next week when I hit 1 year.
I mean, I feel like you've been here for so long with us.
I know. It does. It feels COVID time. I feel like just feels like a long time. But I did have the pleasure of meeting Kenesha and Elise very briefly with our masks on, in the dark, kind of running from car to car when you guys were generous enough to provide a dinner for our kids in Asbury Park. They were just so thrilled. You guys also provided gift cards to them. So whether you're new and just hearing about, Covenant House for the first time through this group, or I've talked to you a few times, you've already impacted our kids and you don't even know it yet. So we got you. I'm going to talk just briefly about, Covenant House for those who don't know as much about Covenant House or are new to hearing about us for the first time. So I'll do a little bit of a Covenant House 101, and then I'll be turning it over mainly to Jenny and Lori so they can cover your really main topic of human trafficking. So I am going to attempt to successfully share my screen. We've all become whizzes in technology, I think. Let's see. All right, how did I do? Everybody see my screen? All right, and I will go to present. Okay, here we are. So I'm gonna first share a video with you, and please just let me know, maybe wave a hand if, I know sometimes the volume is funny. I'm gonna show this video, but I wanna make sure everyone can hear as well as see.
So it's the volume's off here.
The volume off. Okay. Let me see if this can. I hope this works because this is such a good one.
Can hear it a little bit.
Yeah.
I was there.
There you go.
I was out in the park. It was just, and I was like, she was very innocent.
Sounding muffled to me on my end. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of choppy.
I cannot hear it.
Is it? Okay. Well, then let's just skip this part. What I think I can do is, and now my computer decided to take this all on its own. Okay. What I will do is I'll send around that video to Kenesha. That way she can share it with you. I love that video. A few of our kids really kind of share their stories of what brought them to Covenant House. And it gives you a good idea of just, you know, our kids come from all different walks and paths of life. And no matter what brought them to our door, they are welcomed with absolute love and, unconditional love and absolute respect, which really is going to tell you that all you need to know about Covenant House is that we welcome our kids with the unconditional love and absolute respect, no matter where they're coming from, and giving them that game plan of what's their next step. So Covenant House has been, you know, open and around since 1972, and we are stretched far and wide across the country, but we're really going to tell you today about Covenant House, New Jersey. And so we have a few different sites across the state. Jenny is down in Atlantic City. Lori is up in North Jersey. She's kind of been at a few different sites, which we'll talk about. When we were back on site, was in Newark at our crisis center. So we really stretch ourselves far and wide across New Jersey to bring our services and our programs to our kids. So how do our kids find us? They find us from word of mouth with other kids. Sometimes they find out through a program at school, but most of all, our outreach team finds them. So we have people who, similar to the van that you see down in that picture, who are out in the community, really spreading the word of Covenant House. And finding our way into the lives of our kids, gaining their trust and letting them know we are here for them when and if they need our services. So this is also a great thing to know. Our young people, again, as they walk in our doors, come from so many different walks of life. 25% of our kids have been in foster care. 61% of our kids have been reported physical abuse as children. 62% are reported having emotional abuse as children. 38% have had an IEP or some type of learning disability. 26% of our kids reported sexual abuse as children, and 36% of our kids reported experience of domestic violence. One statistic that's not on here is our victims of human trafficking. And I know Lori and Jenny will really cover that, but I believe it's 9 to 15% of our kids. Is that right, Lori?
You know, I can you hear me? I'm not muted, am I right? Yeah, I don't have the exact statistic because I think they were just going to rework those because I think those numbers might be even a little bit higher.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So, you know, we definitely, as we grow and in the human trafficking space, we will come to find more and more information about how our kids come out of human trafficking. But I do know that the last statistic I believe I saw in our last slide was 9%. And so give or take some, that kind of really speaks volumes to what our kids are facing in New Jersey. I know when Kenesha and I first spoke, she said, oh my gosh, I can't believe we even face, you know, things like human trafficking right here in our communities, right here in Asbury Park, right here in New Jersey. And that is a lot of people's perception as well. So I want to tell you a little bit about our programs. And I'll kind of call on Lori and Jenny too to talk about some of the areas they've worked in as well. So we have 2 crisis centers, one located in Atlantic City and one in Newark. And those sites are where kids kind of can walk in right off the street or give us a call and say, I'm in need of help. They will come to one of our crisis centers. This is where we can find the best fit for them. This is where we can come up with a plan of action, whether they're in need of some mental health services, some legal assistance. These are the 2 places where we can kind of come up with that game plan for them. Jenny, I don't know if you want to share a little bit about Atlantic City specifically. You're more than welcome.
Well, I want to brag that those individuals that are in the slide that we weren't able to see, they all came from Rites of Passage, my house, yes. And I'm very proud of them. Just want to brag, a lot of them, majority of them have all been transitioned into their own permanent housing. So that is from all the donations and the great works of the staff and the volunteers and the donors that has equipped them to live and sustain themselves independently. So, but that's what the Rites of Passage, it's a 20-bed unit, has male and female sides. And what we do is, for the most part, is teach them how to live and sustain themselves independently with life skills. I mean, from the simple things that we take for granted of how to make a bed, clean the kitchen or the bathroom, all the stuff that we were taught, and we were fortunate to have guardians, responsible guardians to impart those skill sets with us. Then, and then just give them the opportunity to recreate and paint on a fresh canvas of what they would like to do with life, and then take the necessary steps with our guidance. We don't tell them what to do, but we just ensure them that we will walk the walk with them, whatever it is, whether they trip, it is like, okay, you know, so all that stuff, like a big brother, big sister, but it is a multitude of staff with vast experiences in different fields that can really pour into them. So it's, and then over at the crisis center, like Killian was saying, that they come right off the street, they can be referred, and we don't treat them any differently, okay? They come in with bags, physically, mentally, literally, and we just meet them right where they are and address their needs. We have social workers on staff, we have legal team, and we have other outside referrals that whatever they need, we create a case plan that will suit them, to help them, to give them the advantage to move forward and be as successful as they desire to be.
Thanks, Jenny. I love that, and I'm so glad you brought that up, that those kids were down in Atlantic City, because I really can't wait for everyone to get to see that. So we'll definitely email that video around for everyone. 2 other really special parts of Covenant House is our Nancy's Place location in Montclair, which is specific to the needs of kids who are seeking mental health services. So, you know, it's really great to be able to bring those youth together, and with a commonality of they're working on their mental health. that can be the biggest barrier to them, to their freedom and independence, is their mental health. So being able to give them those services and teach them that independence they need living at Nancy's Place is huge. As well as Raphael's Lifehouse, which is our Moms and Babies program. I know Lori is like itching. They're excited to talk about the Moms and Babies program. I have grown since day one immediately to love the Moms and Babies program. And I'm lucky enough to get to work with our program board there to bring the Moms and Babies just some really special days. So I'll let Lori talk a little bit about Nancy's Place in the Moms and Babies program.
Well, hi, everybody. And again, just so happy to be with you all. And so I recently moved into our human trafficking victim service program, but was with Raphael Lifehouse in Nancy's Place. I'm with Covenant House about 4 years. So I spent the time before October at those locations, volunteer manager, running programs there. So yes, my heart is definitely still connected. And, obviously the work that we're doing in the victim service program will impact our youth as well, because as we'll talk, so much of our research is based on what we know has happened to our clients, right? Right within our community. But the Mom and Baby program is 12 moms can be with us, 12 moms and their babies there. Most of our moms are coming to us if they're expecting, usually in about the 7th or 8th month of the pregnancy, or you can come with a baby up to the age of, 10 or 11 months old, because we have cribs. There's one crib, so it's kind of contained in that way. And it's similar to what Jenny had spoke about. Our moms and babies are there with us, working on all and everything that you can to just, have this beautiful future for themselves, looking for jobs, educational advancement. We're really big about discussing best practices as would be stated by pediatrics, overall for whatever that is. So we're big about all programs that involve around just teaching, more teaching. We're all about teaching. So, and similar to what Jenny said, again, all our sites are about being directed by our client. What are your goals? What is the future you envision for yourself? And with this program, your baby, and we're going to try to help you get there.
Thanks, Lori. I love what you said about, teaching. We also have the Dove Learning Center in Newark, as well as Atlantic City, which really brings that education to another level in terms of job search. And I even sat in on a nutrition class in Newark once. So you name it, we're bringing that education that they need to be successful to them. That's another one of the things that Kenesha and I have talked about over the last few months is you all bring such a wealth of information from your professional lives. So as we kind of figure out what things look like in terms of training and the value of education in a COVID world, there will be so many great opportunities to bring in you all to be able to teach financial literacy or all different types of classes, resume building, you name it. We'll find a way for you to be able to bring those skills that you know and love and share those with our youth.
Killian, I wanted to make one mention before we got off that slide.
Yeah.
One of the things that I love what Jenny said. So we're a proud team, as you could tell. So one of the things we're super proud of, but I just think it's important for all of our friends, obviously that's you guys here tonight, to understand is that the Crisis Center in Newark and Atlantic City, that is an open intake. So the other places we spoke about tonight are not open intake, but open intake for us is this. You open the door, you say you're homeless, you have nothing on you, you might have a bag, as Jenny said, in your hand, but you don't have paperwork, you don't have anything else to tell us except that I need help. And we can take you right into our sites. And there's not a lot of places that can do that, but we can.
Thanks, Lori. And I'm going to apologize in advance. I have 2 dogs who love to talk.
I have the same, so don't worry.
If you hear them, one just tried to make himself known while I was on mute. So I say that now. So I added this in because I know, Kenesha, is the majority of people that we're seeing, I know this was kind of open to some of the other clubs as well. Is everyone with us tonight, like the Asbury Park Central Jersey Club?
Yes.
Okay, that's awesome. So, come to our surprise, one of the things that when Kanisha and Elise and we got together and talked, we said, I can't believe this has been in our backyard this whole time. And, we didn't even know it. So I wanted to kind of throw this in here because you may have driven by this and didn't even know we were right here. So this is our Asbury Park rites of passage, fairly new within the last few years. What you're seeing is the boys' house and the girls' house. So there's 8 bedrooms in each house. A kitchen, living room, like we've talked about with rites of passage, all the kids work together to maintain the responsibility of the house. They maintain jobs. So wanted just to share kind of what this looks like right in your backyard locally.
And if I just want to add, for Asbury Park, unlike rites of passage in Atlantic City, they come directly there. There's no crisis center that they have to go through. They can come right, as you say, right off the street into one of the Asbury Park bedrooms. That's the only difference, and blessing.
That's perfect. Thank you, Jenny. Yeah, I mean, Asbury Park is kind of, I find funny because it's right in the middle, whereas some of our other rites of passage and other sites are really local to kind of our crisis center. They're so close that it's
right
within driving distance, and Asbury Park kind of sits on its own. So in the interest of time, I wanted to share just one last slide, and we'll talk about it more at the end. But kind of a piece of my role is working with our donors and our people who are out in the community involved with Covenant House. Like I mentioned, I work with our program board who supports us in a number of ways, whether it's volunteering or fundraising for us. But we also work on an event all year long in many different ways called the Sleep Out. Elise and Kanisha were so kind enough to sleep out with us in Sleep Out Action for Change, which was a social justice movement earlier this fall. And you guys had a team. So it was phenomenal, such a great start. And we can't wait to, kind of grow your team as we move along in the spring, maybe with a human trafficking component to it. But we'll have lots of opportunities for you guys to sleep out and fundraise, making a difference. So Sleep Out is where you give up your bed for a night, whether it's sleeping on the couch, sleeping on your front porch, or your backyard. This is how our virtual sleep outs are looking nowadays. Typically, we would have you come to a site and we would all sleep out together. You would meet some of our youth and we would have a really robust program, but we've condensed that all to online and virtual. So you'll still hear from some of our youth, but you're sleeping out on your own and kind of putting yourself in our youth's shoes for a night. So it's a really great way to not experience, but sleep out in solidarity with our kids and show them support in that way. It's one of my favorite moments of Sleep Out is the morning reflections back in the morning when everyone comes back and kind of reflects on the thoughts that they may have had when they woke up in the middle of the night, when it was cold or it started raining, and what were those kind of thoughts that they started to have. So Sleep Out is a great way to continue on after this presentation tonight and show your support for our youth. We'll talk about that later on at the end, but kind of wanted to end my piece of this with that. And I will turn it over to Lori and Jenny. But before I do, if there's any questions about kind of the basic Covenant House 101, our sites, our programs, education piece, and happy to answer them before we dive into human trafficking.
Is there a limit to how long the young people can stay with you, or is it until you find other housing for them, or what?
So you take us, Colin.
Go ahead, Lori.
So the Neuro Crisis Center, you can stay for a while we're trying to figure out. That's the open intake where you're walking in, and I'll let Jenny take for the South. But then at the specific sites like Nancy's Place and for the Mom and Baby program, it's approximately 18 months that you can be with us. But when I say 18 months, obviously if something's going on and things are going really well, and it's right at the 18-month mark, and now we're just waiting for this or that to happen, we're gonna make it work, if that makes sense. Our goal is always to have our kids succeed. So, but overall, it's at 18 months. And Jen, what about rites of passage? I'm not sure.
It's the same thing. It's 18 months, but because we are pushing like a dual program, work and education, 18 months, if they're already enrolled in school, we will allow them to stay there until the end of school. Sure. We even have them who have left to go on campus, and for whatever reason during the summers, if they still don't have a place, they are still able, as long as we have a bed, to still come back and spend the summer with us, but keep the routine. And even if they are still working and they just need a little bit more, maybe budgeting or something, at 18 months, we don't just kick them out. We still try to work with them and ensure that they have transitioned properly for sustainable living, and that they are able to sustain it. Everybody can get an apartment, but sustaining it and learning those tools and really having that under your belt is what we pride ourselves on doing. So it is, on paper, it says 18 months, but everybody is on the individual case plan.
And the crisis centers, to Jenny's point, we just want you to be successful. So some of the kids come to us and they've had a variety of things happen and they found themselves homeless. And for lack of a better way to put it, you meet this youth, you pretty quickly like, I'm working, but this is what's happened and I have this and that. And you kind of get out of their way. They just need some, just some stability, housing, a little bit of guidance. And then they're boom, they're off and they're doing their thing. They could be, in and out of the crisis center quicker. And then other kids are going to take a little bit longer, a couple of months, to find their way, as Jenny said, to really.
Yeah, because a lot of them come to the crisis center without collateral documentation. So we help them obtain their birth certificate, socials for however long, so that they can sustain themselves with, employment. Sometimes that's all the shift push that they need, and then they leave the program sooner. And some will transition into other transitional living facilities or other long-term programs, sometimes dealing with mental health. But like I said, even with the crisis centers, same thing. Everybody's on an individualized case plan. And as, their assistance will be as short or as long-term as needed. Thank you. That was a great question.
Yeah.
Great. Well, if there are no more questions, if you think of some at the end, we'll have another moment where we take some questions. But definitely for the main portion of human trafficking, I will turn this over to Lori and Jenny.
Thank you. Okay, so you guys can hear me, right? Everybody can hear me?
Yes.
So Covenant House, New Jersey, and the road to human trafficking. So as Killian had mentioned, we've been doing the work with homeless youth for almost 30 years. And being the provider for youth between the ages of 18 and 21. And in that time frame, we've met a lot of youth. Our clients have shared stories. And as they have had more time with us, be comfortable, having a trust there. We're going to stay on that other screen for a second. We found that as they shared stories, we learned pretty quickly in those years was that many of our kids had been trafficked. And so right there in front of us were stories and situations that we started to really, think about, okay, what is this, right here in front of us, and these stories are happening. And we are then moving forward. And our director, who's over our program, Julie Edenbond, she started to do research. Her and a doctor from Mount Sinai, Dr. McKinney, did research developing a screening tool and started to really delve into services for human trafficking. So Covenant House, as I said, we feel very strongly that we're great with youth of those age groups. But what came from that was people right in front of us who needed further research, and just it kind of compelled us to push forward with research and screening tools about trafficking. And we then last year were awarded the grant through the Attorney General's Office of New Jersey. And then we also received an OVC grant through the federal government to provide services for human trafficking victims throughout the state of New Jersey. And the grant, we are the single point of entry. So we're focusing on case management. It's any age, any housing situation. So any age, any housing situation, any situation at all that is involving human trafficking, we are the statewide provider for that in New Jersey. What is human trafficking? So, hang on one second. Jen, you want to just take this 1 second, because I just got to get my plug here, because you guys hang on 1 second. Hang on.
Okay. The United States Traffic Victim Protection Act of 2000, reauthorized multiple times, including most recently 2017, defines human trafficking as the recruitment, harboring, transportation, obtaining, and/or provision of a person or persons by the use of force, fraud, and/or coercion for the purposes of labor and/or sexual exploitation.
I think you're on mute, Lori.
We had a presentation earlier today, and one of the things our director was saying, and I thought it was worth repeating tonight, is that this kind of sounds very legal, or maybe like law enforcement like, but it is one of the things that we want to, to have you guys, talk about tonight. This does sound complicated, and what we do find is with our tool, sometimes we're coming upon a victim or a client and we're wondering what it is. And we might have to refer back to the legal services that we have at Covenant House to try to define what this is, exactly. But this is what human trafficking is. And we'll talk, this is the next slide. And we'll talk a little bit throughout the night about how it's our experience. Many times people do not know they were trafficked. And I think that's something that is kind of gives you a moment to pause, like, how could that be? But I think it'll start to become it'll be more obvious, because it's the lines get blurred. So this model, action plus means plus purpose equals human trafficking, looks a little complicated and in some ways like, well, but it's, again, the action is to induce, recruit, harbor, transport, provide, and the means through force, through fraud, through coercion, and the purpose is for sex trafficking or labor trafficking. And again, we just want everybody, again, we'll bear repeating, but anybody under the age of 18, there's no such thing as a prostitute. So we just wanted to, minors and anybody that's under the age of 18 that was a victim of human trafficking. Again, the language here is important to understand. Okay. The force, fraud, and coercion element, is de facto satisfied if the victim is under the age of 18 and engaged in commercial sexual activity. There is no such thing as child prostitution. So here's what we wanted to have you understand tonight. I'm super proud of this. So the QUIT is a scientifically validated screening tool for lifetime experiences of labor and sex trafficking among homeless youth. It stands for Quick Youth Indicator for Trafficking, which is the acronym. This is what Covenant House, our director, partnering with Dr. McKinney at Mount Sinai, was able to come up, and it's been validated. And it's now a tool that's used throughout the United States. If you look it up, Google it tonight, it will refer back to us. And super proud of that. Very simple tool. The QUIT was released in 2017, published in a peer-reviewed science journal, Children and Youth Services Review, in 2018. The purpose of a screening tool. So a screening tool indicates the likelihood of trafficking without requiring or even requesting a disclosure. So again, it's not another assessment. Why is this important? So we want to have everybody understand it's something that we're proud to say that the screening tool is not going to re-traumatize a victim. All of our sites throughout Covenant House, we are proud to say that all of our staff, our volunteers, we adhere to trauma-informed care. And trauma-informed care, the bedrock of it is that you're not going to re-traumatize a client. And so this tool actually is, capable of doing just that. We can start to talk to somebody with asking questions without re-traumatizing. And it's important because we want to make sure that in this setting, that there's a relationship that begins to get built. The next screen would be the next one. It's distressing. So this is not something where we're going to be asking you different questions. It's embarrassing. There's stigma related to that, or fear and confusion and blame. So none of that's occurring with this. And many times with some assessments, people could just be, well, there's nothing you can do to help me, right? But with our tool, we're trying to indicate, was this even something that possibly happened? And then we can delve into it deeper, Covenant House, New Jersey, through our team and additional assessments. So why is disclosure not the goal? Questions about trafficking experiences can be re-traumatizing. Shifting from what's wrong with you to what has this ever happened to you and how has this experience affected you is a trauma-informed way of looking at something. So again, we're never trying to re-traumatize, and we're asking questions that are very simply stated, much more in line to, has this ever happened and how has that experience affected you, to come up with our 4 simple questions, which is our quit tool. So while we're having these conversations, and as we train other people to do the same quit tool, whether it be law enforcement, whether it's hospitals, whether it's other shelters, we want the person who's with the client who is asking these questions to be in a partnership mode, not an expert mode. Because what we know is this: the experience is theirs, it's not ours. And so you always want to put the victim, or what I would say the survivor, but our client, in the driver's seat to decide how this conversation is going to go. It's not about us poking and prodding, but rather asking a question and allowing that information to come to us in a way that puts them in the driver's seat. The client then chooses how much to share. I think that's probably that explains for itself. But I think the most important thing is sometimes with different assessments, you're kind of like, well, we got to get through this, but that's not what the quit is. It's 4 simple questions. If you say yeah, if you answer yes, 1 positive, we're just going to look at that as something we need to further investigate. So how is using a structured screening tool a best practice for serving potentially trafficked youth with trauma-informed care? So the broad inquiry is this. So the inquiry is going to just be our quit tool, which is 4 simple questions. We're going to get to it. That if you answer yes to any one of them is going to just like an aha moment that this client, possibly this has happened. And then we're going to move into the risk and safety assessment, which is when one of our agencies who's partnering with us, who has this tool, would then be calling us, using our call line to call us, because that would be when we would step in, and Jenny and I and our team have a variety of other assessments to work with to help determine what has happened. And then intervention is all our services. And it's really literally every and all services that we can provide for a client to move on. Jen, you want to, this you or?
All right. So how does this work? This is just a real description of what it is. The quit will be on the next slide. But all the questions are really yes and no. This is where it does not say or require full disclosure of what happened to them. This is why we recommend just sticking to the questions. The goal is to receive an answer, not the time for a story. The sentences, structure of the questions is 2 sentences, plain and simple. This lets them know that we are not targeting them. These are general questions about being homeless, similar experiences to those in this population. This does not It's nothing to do with how they look, more importantly, what they did. Sentence 2 asks, has this ever happened to you? Not what's wrong with you. So the whole goal is not to, what has been repeated, is desensitize them. We don't know what is a trigger. So the questions are very just general. The questions are written with the intention to be asked verbatim. You don't have to be an expert. That's the good thing about it. Anybody can read the tool. Most importantly is that when this is being done, the environment is private and there's confidentiality. I'm just skipping them. Okay, and then lastly, it takes 5 minutes to really finish it from start to finish. So it's very simple. Okay, we can go to the next one. And the quit, these are the 4 questions. I won't take up your time by reading each one, but for instance, if anything, out of question number 1, and if they're hesitant to answer or they don't know, you might want to just break down the word or clarify work, because a lot of the youth from our experience of coming at Covenant House, they've never worked, or so they may need to have that explained a little bit better, like, you know, performing some sort of act to receive the thing of value in exchange. In 2, if there's still any confusion, you can explain and break down employer, because none of them have really worked, and just remind them that employer is not always somebody that you receive a paycheck from. That's the whole, and then, you know, 3, it's, you can tweak it to the point that if you know that this person is not homeless, so you wouldn't put in the word homeless. So after you do this a few times, you get to know what you become more familiar with them, with the questions. But if you just stick to the script, you can't go wrong. And these are the 4. It's that quick. It's that simple. These are the 4 questions. There's a bunch of other tools out there, if you go to the next one, that, that many people have used, but the ones that we use, we recommend this and we train off this, is because it is scientific validity. It has over 80%, it was about 80%, right, Lori? Specificity and sensitivity for human trafficking. They're meaning that the testing tool indicates it is likely to identify human trafficking experiences when someone has it, as opposed to unlikely the result in too many false positives. So going back to question 3, when it was, if you can slide back. Question 3, it asks about receiving anything in exchange for sex. Some of our Covenant House youth who are 18, that wouldn't be considered 18 years or older, would classify that as survival sex. So it's not really exploitation, it's not human trafficking, potentially exploitation. So some providers may find that false positive valuable for whatever data they may be trying to collect for that population that is not human trafficking, but classifies it as, you know, survival sex. So there, but yeah, that is the tool. Those are the other tools. And a score of 1 or more on the quit means the individual is likely to have had a sex trafficking experience. And in that case, all you have to do is refer them to our call center number, which is operated 24/7. And it is a prompt system. But if you hit the person is in immediate need for, 1 is immediate need danger, we're always going to refer them to call 911. 2 will get one of us. It's myself, Lori, or my director. And the others, it might be general questions, but the case, this is what we provide. The case management is similar, is identical to a Covenant House resident. case management, placement, referral services for victims and survivors, all ages, housing, state in the 21 counties. On-site shelter services from 18 to 24, which we didn't have before. It was 18 to 21. Now we have expanded to 24, so we can place them at one of our shelters immediately or housing. So that has really helped us tremendously. And 25 and up, we go to outside providers seeking them short-term and long-term housing, depending on what their need. And that's it. I don't mean to rush, but that is it as far as the quit tool. If you have any questions about human trafficking, or if you want a training, we will do that also on a one-on-one or a smaller section, smaller group. That can be done as well. Because sometimes people's like, oh, I know it, but then yet I don't know. And Lori and I can attest when we speak to other people in the human services and so forth, and one or two have said, it's not in our area. So those are the very ones that possibly may need a training or two. And it's not to their fault that they don't know what to look for, because especially with COVID-19, it has truly empowered them to think outside the box. So we have to stay, 5 steps ahead of them and be just as resourceful and non-stopping in trying to start this. And yes, it is males.
You're seeing, what does it say? Are you seeing that have been involved? Are you seeing males? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So labor trafficking, sex trafficking, yes, for both of those.
Male and female.
Yep.
Yes.
And, I started, I think, before to say, one of the things people don't know they were trafficked. Well, how can that be? Because a lot of times what happens, or we've heard stories from our clients or even the youth that have been with us, is that, you've made a decision and then at some point you can get out, but you have this feeling that because you made the decision, that this is now befallen you, when in reality, obviously, once you can't leave, once you're being held hostage. But hostage doesn't necessarily, I think sometimes our view of trafficking can be very much along the lines of the movie Taken, you know what I'm saying? Or, this, horror flick of like, a car comes along in your neighborhood and throws you in the back of a trunk, when in reality, it's much more pervasive than that. It's people are groomed, kids are, individuals of all ages are told that this is what's going to happen. You're going to be paid this or that for whatever has been suggested. And then, the next thing you know, you can't get out, or your family is being threatened, if you leave. So it's it's in every, as Jenny said, it's in every community of New Jersey, bar none.
And a lot of them are transported from another state and just literally dropped here, and they do their business, and then they are fortunate to get out, and wherever they are, we meet their needs. We've even had to send some, we were fortunate to send some back to their home state as long as it was safe. So yes, and this is males and females, transgenders, you name it. Were there any other questions?
What are some of the most, common services that you're finding are human trafficking, victims need when they, come out? I know we talked earlier about so many of our services with mental health or,
yes,
or legal documents. What are kind of some of the most common things you find our youth need?
That's just it. Mental health, it's been legal, and it's been shelter. For those who want to remain here, in that particular county, is finding them sustainable housing. So that has been the common, but it's mental health. That's the number one thing, mental health, and as well as legal. They have some legal issues because of the trafficker. They incurred this charge or that charge, so how can I get it expunged, and so forth like that. Would you concur, Lori?
Yes, I definitely. I think our big focus is to put somebody in a housing situation that's a trauma informed. If you're talking about human trafficking, and if you're talking about any covenant house type of programs, we're always going to go back to that. right? So it's trauma-informed. So we would want a victim to be able to be placed somewhere where people will going to be immediately wrapping around them in terms of services and trauma. And to Jenny's point, mental health, services. So for sure, legal, yeah, I mean, housing is a challenge. I mean, you can only imagine, right? In the time of COVID, shelters and what have you have been closing, in alarming rates because of COVID. And just, even with us, we've had clients where we were able to get them into shelters that, dealing with human trafficking or domestic violence. But with COVID, you have to stay somewhere before you can be tested. And that's very difficult. So yeah, I think, for sure, housing and mental health, legal, as we said. But again, I think that just the pandemic has challenged all of us in whatever we're doing. And this particularly has been a challenge too, right? Mm-hmm. I saw in the chat, was there a question about, I'm sorry.
Yes. The question is, what is the rate between male LGBTQ and female?
When you say rate, like a percentage of people trafficked in New Jersey between those, whether it be male, female, or LGBTQ, I honestly could not answer that. I just know that our services are for all of and everyone, for sure. Right, Jen? I don't think.
Yeah, I don't have the exact figure, but it's also who comes out and reports it. That's the biggest thing. A lot of people are not coming out and reporting it. And you're having delayed responses or traumas. You could be working and then something triggers. So we're getting 30 and 40-year-old male and females who have been re-traumatized by a situation unrelated to, but something triggered, a smell or something. So it's still new. We're 4 months into this and we have not got we have another Kylan, who is our data analyst. So probably at the end of the quarter, we'll have a better understanding, an idea of the figures. But right now it's just getting the people to report. And then, there's the shame and, what this tool will help you distinguish who is really homeless, who is, experienced some form of human trafficking, so that we really can have a better understanding of how to help, and not just, because of their sexual preference, orientation, they weren't just thrown out. And then once they're educated, what possibly could have happened, that's when it's been discovered that it was some form of human trafficking. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
I guess I have a question. What are your immediate plans for the grant funding? Are you looking to increase the staff? Are you looking to source additional houses or shelters? Are there any immediate strategies for the grants that you receive?
I know that there's like a 3-prong look at this. So it's obviously victim services, it's going to be research, and it's going to be advocacy, right? So we're just really getting the ball, the wheels turning right now with us, because we was really started in October. And as Jen mentioned, we have Kylan is doing data research. We have our 2 directors. It's me and Jen, so we're a small team, but we're mighty. But we are going, our goal is to expand for sure. And then as that happens, yes, obviously for staff as well. And we humble ourselves, right, to know, what we're learning as we go. But what we know we can do is great work. Is we do really great case management. We can help people move on from things. We know what it's like, to link arms with our youth and say, okay, what is it that you want to get done? Because we're going to do it together. It's not us to decide. You tell us. And that magic sauce, we've made it, right, Jen, time and again at Covenant House. So
knock on wood.
Knock on wood. So we're hopeful that in those ways that we're experts in the care of case management and services, and being able to help somebody, see beyond, what their experiences are now and into this, if you will, brighter future. That's, for us, we know we have that. And then all of the other data, we are very data driven. We want to do the best work we can. And so that's why having that done, knowing that we can look back and say, how can we do that? Wow, we did that great, but you know what? We didn't do that so great. And those numbers are going to tell us those things. And we will make the provisions we need to deliver the best care we can. I mean, that's our commitment. It is to serve any and all and educate as much as we can to prevent this atrocity. But for the people who come to us, anything and everything that we can do will be done. I mean, that's the way the grant was written. It's really all services for victims. I
think one of the things you talk about that I love, Lori, is also that we serve as their loving parent. So it's kind of like when, you're 18 years old and going out for the first time on your own and you figure things out but you get a flat tire and right. You call home and you say, but mom, like, right. This is what I need. And our kids don't have that. Right. And so, something I love that we talk about or refer to ourselves as is that loving parent. And I think it also serves in another direction of sometimes our kids might not be ready or they're not in a place to follow the program and they might choose to leave. Just like a loving parent will still be there when and if they choose right. to come back.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I could say, I know Jenny would probably agree, but I would say that some of my some of the greatest successes, I don't even know if you want to frame it that way because everybody's a success, but the kids that have come, that the stories are just mind blowing of what they achieve are kids that have left us multiple times. You really think the curfew, like this curfew? Well, when I said yes to this curfew, I never thought you really meant that we were going to have this curfew, or on it goes, well, the amount that you have to save. Like we're very big about, as Jenny said, how do you sustain yourself outside? Well, you have to learn how to save. Well, what does that look like? You have to save while you're with us. We don't take a penny from our kids, but you have to save your money, if that makes sense. So whatever you're making, there's a percentage at each site. Well, okay, but I really want the TV. Well, okay, but you can't get a TV right now because you don't have enough money in your own little thing, and on it goes. I say that to say this. Some of the most unbelievable stories or kids that left like several times and came back and were like, okay, I'm starting to hear this.
You don't realize that they were listening until they come back and it was like, oh, you really did enroll in college and finish. Okay. So yeah. It's like, it's teaching them defining structure right. that they can understand and truly apply is daily life applications. And like I said earlier, is what we took for granted because it was taught to us. Right. These people were never or forgot or just needed that constant nudge. And so we don't enable them. We really try to get them to learn how it feels to stand on their own feet and see that pressure of their decisions, but the assurance that we have you. We have your back. We can come back and we can try plan B, try plan C. As long as they have the energy, we have the energy to meet them.
What I'm seeing too is in the clients that we haven't, again, since October, but the clients that we have had the privilege to work with, you do see a similar trend, if you will, of whether the human trafficking for them, the crime and that experience has happened in the past or it has happened recently, the idea of how am I going to move through this? How am I going to get through this? How am I going to, how do I see myself onto the other side of this? So, again, to Jenny's point, it's like, no, we got you. We got you.
Are there any other questions? I have just one more slide on kind of what you guys can do now that you know all this information, which I know is a lot. And Kenesha can definitely share our information if you guys have questions.
There's got to be some liability questions when it comes to other organizations just stepping in, and I'm wondering, having been a parent of teenagers, it can't be easy dealing with a lot of your clients. What kind of backup do you all have?
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great point. I think we would do no service to any presentation to not say that it's challenging, right? That, I've raised 3 kids,
Yeah.
challenging, you know, and then kids that have been traumatized with this and that. But,
Right,
but
exactly.
we first and foremost, you know, we know one thing, right? It's as Killian started this whole, it's absolute respect, you know, it's, you know, unconditional love. It's trauma, and I know I keep saying it, but it's a trauma informed approach to care. It's understanding, you know, how to best serve our youth. And I really do work with incredible people. I've watched in so many different situations, really very difficult situations. I've been in conversations where, you know, we've had conversations where somebody has to be told that the program is not working for them right now. Those are not happy days for us. Those are really, really sad days for us. You know, I think you think of all the, you know, the things that are going well. You're always going to think about the youth that, what happened? You know, where are they now? You know, so to, you know, to make it sound like some Disney movie, I mean, that would just be disrespectful. But I think it's the work that we're doing that you say, okay, you know what? You know, we're getting it done. And you are right. It's, some of those things are challenging, but our staff is incredible. I mean, incredible, incredible people who love our kids and want the best for them, really do.
And the person said volunteer opportunities after the pandemic. Is that for human trafficking or
In general?
Covenant House?
I think that ties into Killian's last slide. I'm sure once she finishes the slide, it'll answer that question.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, now that we're on it, you know, volunteering, I think as I started to talk about, it may have been me that you heard Jenny talk about the volunteer opportunities that we may have, or did someone type it in the chat?
Yeah.
Type it in the chat. Well, so after the pandemic, we have a ton of and who knows what things will look like and how we'll bring things back. But there are just a slew of volunteer opportunities that we had prior to the pandemic. But I do know that, you know, as we kind of carry through this point in time in life, we have started to create some virtual opportunities as far as coaching and some maybe job training, getting ready for interviews. That's something Kanisha and I have talked about a good bit, knowing how professional all of you are and how, you know, just much our kids would just look up to you and really just love your support. So I will certainly provide Kanisha with any and all of those opportunities as we have them and get them and create more ways around the way of COVID right now.
Feeding our kids in Asbury, that's an amazing opportunity. Like if that, I heard you did that, you know, I mean, at RLH and at Nancy's place, anytime dinner came, everybody was happy. So, you know, don't underestimate how, you know, that spreads joy. I mean, let's face it, you know.
Absolutely.
So that's wonderful.
Yes, Piola, I know mentioned, you know, raising teenagers. Food makes teenagers happy. Definitely. So our kids, I know, are thrilled with dinner anytime. I know Chick-fil-A. I hear the names of the places people will get dinner from sometimes, and that's what a happy day for sure.
Yeah.
Another opportunity, you know, we have to support Covenant House in all of our ways, whether it's the Human Trafficking Program or Rites of Passage, Asbury Park, Sleep Out and Fundraise is always, you know, a great way to get involved and really learn more. Our executive director, Jim White, comes on and gives the most inspirational speeches and really shares some powerful stories about his time with our kids. You know, he really reflects back on some incredible youth that he's had the opportunity of knowing over his 30 years with Covenant House. So the most upcoming Sleep Out is, we do have a Sleep Out located for Montclair, and that is the first one coming up. But with you guys all being located in Asbury Park, I thought one of the best fits of an opportunity to share with you is our community Sleep Out, and that will be happening March 19th. So once I have flyers for those, I will share them with Kenesha. We have a fundraising goal of, I believe, $1,500 for an individual, but you all can work together as form a team and can really rally around the community of Asbury Park. And this will go right into your backyard, you know, as we shared and you saw those houses. So we'll certainly share more about that event. And so that is the one really located, I think, specific to you all, but we'll definitely share more about those as they come up in the spring. And again, those are virtual. So just commute to your computer and you'll be good to go and find a spot to sleep at home. And then just sharing the word. I think, you know, you all have heard so much. And as our executive director, Jim White would say, a drink with a fire hose. So I'm sorry for that. But we are here if you think of questions later on, tomorrow, in the days and weeks ahead. Happy to jump on individually with you guys. Kenesha can share my phone number or our emails, and we are always here for more questions or brainstorming on how to help our youth. And I know Lori and Jenny, this is the human trafficking flyer. I know if you guys want to speak to that specifically.
Yes, you know, it's just that you have the number. Jenny was, you know, explaining, we call it, it's our call center. If somebody was being trafficked and they wound up calling the national hotline, if it was in New Jersey, this would be the number that person would get. But we call it a call center because, to Jenny's point, it's prompts. So we're trying to indicate that, yes, of course, it's going to be a 911. The next one, if you know, it would be us. And then there's a variety of prompts to take you where you need to go. But if anybody that's been on the call, or if Jenny and I can help in any way, you can obviously go through Killian or get our email or whatever. We're happy to talk about, you know, any way we can help if you wanted to.
So we get a copy of that flyer, Killian? Can you send that flyer to me? Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, we're so grateful that you guys took your time out of your schedules to talk to us tonight so we can learn more about this topic. I know we had a program a couple of years ago that Mrs. Smith, she led for the youth in Neptune area, but I think it was targeted more to awareness training or sessions for the youth. And this was good for us to learn more about the topic, because I'm gonna be honest, I didn't know a lot about the impact in the area. I didn't know a lot about it at all. Other than watching TV, which is never a good source for information. But we look forward to looking at ways where we as an organization can help with the youth of our area, particularly in areas of job training, economic development, those areas that kind of align with our program mission. So we're excited that we have this partnership with you guys. We're excited that you came here to talk to us. And we just look forward to continuing to help the community any way we can. So we're glad that you're here, and thank you again. And we look forward to working with you guys in the future.
We thank you so much, really do. Yeah. Without you guys, without the donations, without all of this energy behind us, it doesn't happen. So
yeah, and I do want to thank the sisters. We donated in our first sleep out. It was Alicia and I slept in my car. Alicia, I don't know where she slept, but I know we heard noises. It was kind of crazy at one point. But it was an eye-opening experience, right? To kind of wake up the next day and kind of think about something from a different perspective. So it was an amazing opportunity to think more about some of the privileges that maybe we have that we need to share with others. And as a club, we raised almost $800. So I do want to thank the sisters for raising money and raising funds, and we'll continue to help out with this initiative any way we can.
And when this terrible pandemic's all past us, maybe we'll be back outside and
I know we can come visit the house. Yeah, we wanted to go in, but we couldn't. So we kind of like food drop by. Yeah, we heard the food was good. We couldn't eat it. So we dropped
well, before all this, I guess I slept out. I don't even know. I'm with Covenant House like 4 years or so, but I guess I slept out maybe 3 or 4 times. But they're amazing nights of just unity. And I hope someday we'll all be together to do it. So
God bless you all for what you do for the children who need it the most.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for
being here so much. We're appreciative.
Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you, Kenesha, and thank you.